Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. Wednesday, we had a very interesting, a very hyper stylized spectacle of a show that took place down under Gold Coast of Australia, Queensland to be more specific, where Opetaia was the reigning IBF and Ring Magazine champion, defending his belts against David Nyika, who was his standing opponent after Hussein Sin Cara had to pull out with a foot injury. I think torn tendons in his foot or something like that. The overall card, I didn't get a chance to see everything. I did go back and watch some parts of it. The Terra Moana fight, I saw obviously the first round knockout, the sweeping left hook. His opponent chose to stay on the ground. He could have got up, but I guess when you feel that kind of power, sometimes you have better ideas. And maybe he just decided to save himself for another day. So I won't really talk too much about that. Justice Huni against Sean Potgator was the co-main. It was another fight of recent where obviously the level is way below where Justice Huni should be fighting, but there's a bit of a, there's that problem, sort of that fine balance where before he was being put into the really hard fights probably a bit too early, and now obviously they've tried to sort of bring him back and give him some activity, but the level of competition he's fighting is not of the suitable standard for himself, even from a progression or even an activity standpoint. So I do hope this is the end of sort of that, that little run out of fights he's had, but the activity itself should get him to where he needs to be. They're talking about potential Huni versus a Talma some point this year. I said I actually want a matchmaker's fee if that happens, because I did call for that fight when they was talking about that first 5v5 or what fighters for Matchroom and Queensbury would you pick. I put that fight up there. I think I was one of the only people that did. So the fact it's being talked about now, I'm pretty sure someone saw it, but I'm gonna just sort of leave that one there. Main event, long and the short of it, and one of the things I do kind of like about the Australian market, especially in the fight, like you've got a MC that's actually trying to G up the crowd and is like, actually, oh, we're in the third round, 15 seconds gone, kind of like they sort of really, they talk through the action as well to keep obviously the crowd engaged. And they do in Australia, they do things a little bit like they do a bit when they have those Monaco Monte Carlo shows. It's like it's boxing, but it's a dinner and a show. Like you've got tables, they actually have the tables, and you go around the tables, you can have food and drink at the tables, and you can watch the fights while you're eating and things like that. They don't really do that much over obviously the UK and the US or stuff, but in those markets that's something they seem to do. So it'll be interesting to see if that sort of trickles over into any of the other bigger markets sort of somewhere down the line. In terms of the main event, look, it was what it was. I think two people commented on my basis picks video, like I think someone said something along the lines of, it's scary how accurately you predicted that fight. Ultimately, I knew what David Nyika was. I've seen him as an amateur, obviously I've seen him as a pro. He has some good attributes, some very good attributes, but I see the shortcomings as well. And I just knew that ultimately those shortcomings would be exploited. The fact that even though he gives up his height a lot of the time, and he does bend his legs, but he hunkers down, gives up his height, but somehow still manages to fight or be in a tall upright position even though he's hunkering down. Like he doesn't use his range as effectively as he could. He's not, obviously he hasn't got the longest of arms, but considering how tall he is, you would think that he would be able to manage distance a lot better than he does, especially against smaller fighters, which is where he seems to have the most of his issues. And I just saw all of that. I kind of knew, and I was one that I said, this is basically Jordan Thompson 2.0. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to have more success than Thompson, but the only benefit is obviously he's got a lot more amateur experience. And I predicted, I said, look, this fight is pretty much is going to end somewhere between the fourth and the sixth round, and it ended in the fourth, exactly the same as the Jordan Thompson fight. I said I think he may be able to get past the fourth, where Thompson didn't due to his pedigree. No, fourth round, quite a a dominant performance. There was moments of success, fleetingly from Nika throughout maybe round two and maybe a tiny bit of round three. Outside of that, there's a lot of sort of grappling on the inside. Jai Patel was rushing quite a lot of shots in that first round as well. I think that was just the energy of the Tasman fight, Australia, New Zealand, the little rivalry there. So maybe at that point it was okay, all tactics out the window. Let's just have a scrap, see who comes out on top. And like David had, like I said, fleeting moments, especially when he was in the clinch, just using his natural size to sort of try and push Opetaia back towards the ropes at times. But then there would be other times he was getting pushed back, especially after the second. It just looked as if a lot of his energy had disappeared. Congrats on, he caught Jai Patel with a good two-piece to the top of the head right at the end of the second round, where Jai dipped down with his arms a bit too low, as opposed to being here. They was a bit lower. Caught two shots on the top of the head, got up, obviously he was buzzed, but he was up in the upright position, arms in, goes, clinches, he clinches Nika, pushes him back towards the ropes. You can kind of see the smile on his face as he's doing it. Tries to go underneath one of his arms, goes to dig one shot in, bell goes, they get separated, and you can see this smile on his face as he's walking back to his corner. From there, like, the heat got turned up. Nika couldn't handle the heat, was getting caught with the overhand right, so he tried for the uppercut on a couple of occasions. Eventually he managed to walk Nika, or dip him straight into one of those uppercuts. He goes down, he's on wobbly legs from there, and then he's just on the ropes, and just the most vicious, brutal left hook that I would say we've seen this year, but the year's just started. But it was a really, really nasty, devastating free shot, basically. It could be the knockout of the year, and we've only just started January, but it was brutal. David Nika was down on the floor for like 5 minutes. He wasn't moving for a period of time. It was very reminiscent of Francis Ngannou after the AJ knockout, just being out, just like stonewalled, no real movement to the, they had to put him obviously in recovery position. They're checking him over, he's just laying down. He might have been talking to people for all we know, but he was just down for a good 2, 3, 4 minutes. Glad he got up, he was safe afterwards, but that was nasty. That was nasty work. Jai Patel called out Zurdo Ramirez at the end, and he specifically mentioned him. He said, I'm coming for those belts. He doesn't normally call out names. He just says that he wants a WBO title. He's literally calling for Zurdo Ramirez. So let's see. Eddie Hearn said that Oscar De La Hoya was watching. I'm hoping Oscar, finds some balls to put his fighters in legit, quote unquote, 50-50 fights. That's not something he is known for doing, not unless it's a cash out right at the end of their career or something like that. So look, we'll wait and see ultimately what happens with that. I do hope that fight does take place, but I'm sure that there's going to be other fights in between. Badu Jack has to kind of get in the mix somewhere. He's also a reigning champion at cruiserweight. So look, we'll wait and see kind of what takes place there. Outside of that, look, there was a Ring Magazine Awards on Saturday. Devin Haney was in the building. He was around the Thursday. He came into the UK on Thursday. But the Ring Magazine Awards was at the exact same time as the Boxer event that was taking place in Sheffield. Ben Shalom decided to go to the Ring Awards rather than his own show. And the nasty thing about that is he actually made the right decision. I said this, I was on Fight Talk Live earlier. Hope everyone tuned into that if you were watching. And I don't say this as hyperbole, I don't say this for shock value. This particular Boxer card may have been the worst mainstream card I've ever witnessed. In terms of the way the action played out, just the feel of the card, the fights that was on display, a lot of it was poor. The entire main card lasted 7 rounds. You had a technical draw in the co-main. Chief support Caroline Dubois, Jessica Kamara, due to a head clash, lasted only 2 rounds. The main event lasted 2 rounds with one of the worst stoppages that we've seen in recent history. It was probably worse than the Groves and Frotch stoppage, and there's been others that have been really bad as well. But yeah, I don't even really want to go into all of the semantics about it. Boxer need to do better. And the thing is, I want to give them. I can give them a tiny bit of grace because I know that this was, it's a January card. It's the 8th of January, so you're not going to get your heaviest hitters coming out straight after Christmas and wanting to fight in January, miss Christmas, miss New Year's, all that stuff. So you're probably going to get the lower level guys. But there was just the only fight that I saw that you would look at from, there was two maybe competitive-ish type fights on there. There was Woodall and Simpson, which was supposed to be competitive, but Callum Simpson is still the clear favorite, and I expect him to win, but I thought he'd win on points. And then the other one was maybe the Devon Miller and the Scott Forrest fight. Those are the only two that you maybe look at and say, yeah, these could be 50-50-ish type scraps. And Miller and Forrest was actually it was an somewhat entertaining-ish battle for what it was. Caroline Dubois and Jessica Kamara it wasn't a mismatch in terms of experience, but we all knew Caroline Dubois was gonna basically beat the brakes off of Jessica Kamara, and it's only due to the accidental head clash how Kamara is able to come out of that fight with any belt intact, without a loss on her record, technical draw. Obviously that's not the way it was planning to be from what I saw. And I didn't watch the entire 4 minutes of action. I was kind of in between as I was at dinner at the time, but Jessica looked like I think she maybe landed 2 punches from what I saw. And they were both counters, so there was no point where she was just getting a hold of the fight. I think she got dropped early in the first round. She had the cut over the right eye. No, the left eye. The right eye was all swollen, or it might have been the other way around. Like, she just looked like she had been in a wreck, and it was just about to get worse. So there's that. Like I said, main event. I didn't like the fact of throughout this entire build up, the whole narrative, not just today, but like even in the press conferences, and everything was about how's Callum Simpson going to deal with the death of his sister. Look, that's a really nasty thing to happen. It's a traumatic thing. It took place 6 months ago now, 6-7 months, but it's like, why is that the only narrative that you're going with this fight? Like, let's stop bringing up every moment the fact this guy's now got to think about his sister that's passed away in a tragic car accident. Like, we don't need to hear that drummed in every moment, and when's going to be the moment he finally lets the emotion out, or he finally breaks down. Like, that's really, really bad. And I'm sorry, like, Sky are really bad for doing that kind of stuff, like preying on tragedies. They've done it a lot. I don't like it. If you can't sell the fight off of, or you can't sell the event off of a genuine interest, then the event shouldn't be on in the first place. Like, all of that pity party stuff is disgusting, and especially when you're constantly bringing up something that will be a traumatic moment and experience. Like, we're waiting for the tears, we're begging for, we want to see, it's like you want to see him hug his mum and start crying, or start crying in the middle of an interview to get some social media clicks or something. It really disturbed me, and yeah, I just thought it was horrendous, and I thought everyone who partook in that entire operation and that narrative, that really should be ashamed, and they need to do better. In terms of, look, I may never get another boxer accreditation after what I've said about this particular show, but really and truly, if you're looking at it just from an objective point of view, if you need to do better, like, and I'm telling you, you need to do better, that's not because I want you to fail. Like, I actually want you to do better. If I wanted Boxer to fail, I'd be laughing right now. I'm not laughing. I'm actually like upset that the show was that bad, that things took the turn that they took within that entire, that entire period. Like, it actually disturbs me. It's not a nice feeling, and not on the weekend that I should actually be celebrating. And I tried to take time out of my celebrations to watch and support this show, and there's nothing about the show that I remember apart from a really poor stoppage right at the end of it, which, look, Steve Woodall was on his way to getting knocked out anyway, but like, you give him the opportunity to prove us wrong. At least he was doing okay up until that point. I even tweeted in that first round that, like, Callum Simpson was boxing like he was trying to get himself knocked out. It was one of his worst performances, and I can obviously look at that and say, well, there may be mitigating circumstances and factors as to why he was performing so bad to what I've seen before, but he was still looking really, really bad to me in that first round. He got a little bit better in the second, and obviously the second round is where it ended, so we don't know if he would have managed to sort of keep that composure or whatnot. But I hope that he takes a little bit of time away just to process whatever he's doing and tighten up and get back in the gym and, come back sharper and come back like the Callum Simpson I remember from previous fights, like the Zach Chelly and the fights before that, where, he's aggressive, but he's composed. He's being sensible. He's being smart. He's not rushing shots. He's not backing in and then trying to back out with his hands down and things of that nature. He's not throwing from too far out. This is the time where that stuff shouldn't be happening, because he's getting more and more into the speed of things, and he's actually, and he's gone through his apprenticeship. He's gone through those initial high octane moments. But yeah, that's kind of what I thought of this week's proceedings. Obviously, other things have happened. There may be another video where I'll talk about that stuff, or we'll talk about everything else on a live stream. But yeah, I just wanted to do a real quick one just to summarize my thoughts on what kind of took place from Wednesday up till Saturday, and obviously today. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. I'm planning on enjoying mine. I'm about to watch some good quality football for the rest of the day. So yeah, there will be more footage, more videos and whatnot coming throughout the week. So keep tuned to those. Keep tuned to the socials. Enjoy the rest of the day, whatever you guys are doing, and I will catch you on the next one. Until then, peace.